it's possible to stand and look at that stone road and not think that this had to have a special purpose. It's a rather massive construction, and it had to be done for a reason.
For more than 230 years, Oak Island has remained one of the world's greatest unsolved mysteries. Thousands of excavations, more than 1,000 boreholes, and over $100 million spent have all failed to answer one question: what is really hidden beneath the island? But now, everything may have changed. Using advanced ground-penetrating scans, deep core samples, and cutting-edge 3D underground imaging, researchers have uncovered something that doesn't appear to be a natural geological formation. Buried deep below the surface are symmetrical stone layouts, straight edges, and connected structures unlike anything previously recorded on Oak Island. If future scientific investigations confirm these features were built by human hands, they could completely rewrite the island's history. But who built them? Are these the remains of a forgotten underground complex, the entrance to a hidden tunnel network, or the first real evidence leading to the legendary treasure that generations have searched for without success? Today we're examining the latest discoveries, the science behind them, and what they could mean for one of history's most enduring mysteries. Before we begin, if you enjoy documentaries about ancient mysteries, hidden treasures, and astonishing discoveries, make sure to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so you never miss our next investigation. Now, let's go back to the moment when everything changed. At first, everything seemed completely normal. Data was being collected from different locations. Researchers continued gathering information from different parts of the island, carefully checking every new result against decades of previous records. In the beginning, everything appeared routine. The data matched expectations, and nothing suggested that anything unusual was hidden below the surface. Then, only a few days into the investigation, something unexpected happened. The monitoring systems began detecting unusual underground signals. Similar anomalies were appearing at nearly identical depths across multiple survey locations. At first, the team believed these readings were probably caused by natural rock formations. It seemed like a reasonable explanation. However, as additional scans were completed, that explanation became harder to accept. When the latest survey results were combined with detailed 3D geological models, a surprising pattern emerged. Instead of random underground features, several of the anomalies appeared to line up in remarkably straight paths. In other areas, the scans revealed symmetrical stone arrangements and sharply defined edges that did not resemble ordinary geological formations. Even the investigators were surprised by what they were seeing. For the first time, the possibility was raised that something other than natural rock might exist beneath Oak Island. What made the discovery even more compelling was that these unusual patterns were not isolated to a single location. Survey points spread across different parts of the island were producing remarkably similar results. Because of this consistency, many specialists were reluctant to dismiss the findings as simple geological coincidence. At the same time, they remained cautious. They emphasized that only thorough scientific testing could determine whether the structures were truly artificial. Even so, they admitted that such organized and repeating patterns would be difficult to explain as entirely natural. To understand why these discoveries have attracted so much attention, it's important to look back at the history of Oak Island itself. The mystery began in 1795, when a group of young men discovered what appeared to be a strange depression in the ground. Nearby were cut tree trunks and unusual markings that suggested significant work had taken place there long before anyone arrived. That discovery sparked what would eventually become the longest-running treasure hunt in history. Many believed that an extraordinary treasure had been deliberately hidden beneath the island centuries earlier. No one, however, expected that the search would continue for more than 2 centuries. As the years passed, the famous Money Pit became the center of every major investigation. Each new expedition was convinced that the answers lay directly beneath that location. Yet every attempt brought new obstacles instead of new discoveries. At times, excavations were suddenly flooded with water. On other occasions, work had to be abandoned altogether because of unstable ground or reports of underground flood tunnels. Different teams recovered pieces of old timber, unusual stone layers, and even traces of metal, but none of these findings provided the definitive proof needed to solve the mystery. Over the last 230 years, thousands of excavation attempts have taken place on Oak Island, More than 1,000 boreholes have been drilled, and over $100 million has been invested in the search. Engineers, geologists, archaeologists, treasure hunters, and major exploration companies have all brought their own theories and techniques to the island. Every expedition believed it might finally uncover the truth. Instead, each new discovery seemed to raise even more questions. That is exactly why Oak Island continues to be regarded as one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in the world. Despite centuries of effort, enormous financial investment, and increasingly sophisticated technology, no one has been able to prove what truly lies beneath the island. Perhaps that is why the latest evidence suggesting the presence of ancient underground structures has generated such intense excitement. Unlike many previous investigations, this latest operation relied on advanced scientific technology rather than excavation alone. For several months, researchers examined the island using high-resolution ground scans, deep core sampling, and detailed 3D geological modeling. Their objective was to study the underground landscape without disturbing it. The researchers believed that if hidden structures really existed below the surface, the first clues would appear in the data itself. They began by extracting deep core samples from carefully selected locations. Every sample was thoroughly analyzed, with its depth, soil composition, and rock layers accurately documented. Once that work was complete, the new scan results were compared with decades of borehole records and previous geological surveys. Initially, the information appeared to be nothing more than separate sets of data. But as every dataset was merged into sophisticated computer-generated 3D models, a completely different picture started to emerge. For the first time, as researchers continued analyzing the data, the 3D geological models began revealing an even more intriguing picture. Several underground anomalies no longer appeared isolated. Instead, they seemed to connect with one another, forming patterns that stretched beneath different parts of Oak Island. In certain areas, the scans outlined what looked like long, straight stone boundaries, while elsewhere similar gaps and structural features appeared at almost identical intervals. To rule out errors, the team reviewed the information repeatedly from multiple perspectives. Yet every new analysis pointed to the same conclusion. The patterns remained remarkably consistent. That was the turning point in the investigation. The greatest surprise came when the computer models displayed what appeared to be a symmetrical arrangement beneath the surface. Experts explained that nature is capable of producing unusual rock formations, but highly organized and repeating layouts are far less common. Even so, they stressed that it would be premature to describe the discovery as a human-built structure. Only physical excavation and solid scientific evidence could determine its true origin. Still, one fact could not be ignored. After more than 2 centuries of searching, modern technology had revealed underground features unlike anything previously detected on Oak Island. As the investigation continued, the discoveries became even more remarkable. High-resolution underground scans combined with advanced 3D geological models began exposing shapes that caused the research team to stop and re-examine every piece of evidence. Across several locations, the images revealed straight stone edges, clean geometric outlines, and interconnected formations. At first glance, it almost appeared as though the stones had been deliberately arranged according to a carefully planned design. The researchers refused to rely on a single source of evidence. They compared the latest scan results with decades of borehole records, deep core samples, and earlier geological surveys. Surprisingly, each independent dataset seemed to reinforce the others. In some areas, the stone boundaries appeared so well defined that many investigators found it difficult to explain them as ordinary layers of rock. As a result, every unusual signal was subjected to additional testing and verification. This raised an important question. How do scientists distinguish between natural geology and something that may have been created by human hands? According to geological experts, naturally formed rock rarely follows consistent patterns. Its layers are usually uneven, its edges irregular, and its orientation unpredictable. However, when straight lines, equal spacing, geometric shapes, and connected stone features repeatedly appear within the same area, they become worthy of much closer investigation. That is exactly why the newly discovered formations on Oak Island attracted so much scientific attention. Despite the excitement, researchers remained cautious. They made it clear that without excavation and physical confirmation, no one could claim these formations were artificial. Nevertheless, one detail continued to stand out. For the first time in the island's 230-year history of exploration, so many organized underground patterns had appeared together in the same investigation. Following the discovery of these unusual underground signals, the next critical phase focused on deep core sampling. The research team wanted to examine the underground layers directly rather than relying solely on scan data. Core samples were therefore extracted from multiple locations and at different depths across the island. Each sample was removed with great care to preserve every layer of soil, rock, and buried material before being transported to specialized laboratories for analysis. Many investigators believed the real answers might not be hidden in the digital images at all, but inside these physical samples. As laboratory examinations began, several findings immediately drew attention. Some cores contained stone fragments embedded within ordinary rock layers, yet their texture appeared noticeably different from the surrounding geology. Other samples revealed pieces of wood, while faint metallic traces were detected in several locations. These discoveries, appearing at varying depths, quickly became a major focus of the investigation. Perhaps even more significant was the fact that the evidence was not confined to a single borehole. Similar indications were being recorded across multiple sampling sites, suggesting that the anomalies extended over a much larger area than originally expected. Every important sample underwent detailed laboratory testing. Scientists analyzed the composition of the stone, examined the wood fragments, and carried out separate studies on the metallic traces. Each result was carefully compared with historical borehole records, previous geological surveys, and the latest ground scan data to eliminate the possibility of mistakes. The preliminary findings suggested that certain underground layers were behaving differently from what would normally be expected in natural geological formations. Even so, researchers emphasized that laboratory results alone could not prove the existence of a hidden structure. Yet when the evidence from the deep core samples was combined with the high-resolution ground scans and the detailed 3D geological models, the investigation began revealing a far more compelling picture. As researchers compared every dataset, an interesting pattern began to emerge. Several underground indicators appeared to align with one another instead of existing as isolated features. Because of this, the experts decided that the next stage of the investigation would need to be carried out in even greater detail. Now, one question dominated the entire project. Could these newly discovered patterns be part of the legendary tunnel network that treasure hunters have searched for over generations? The latest evidence gathered from deep core samples, advanced ground scans, and detailed 3D geological models had completely reshaped the investigation. When all the information was analyzed together, the researchers noticed that many of the underground features appeared to continue in the same direction, almost as though they belonged to a much larger interconnected system. That observation revived one of Oak Island's oldest and most debated theories. For decades, treasure hunters have argued that the famous Money Pit is only one part of a much larger underground complex. According to this theory, hidden tunnels may link different areas of the island together. Among those locations, Smith's Cove has always attracted particular attention. Many researchers have long suggested that an underground passage could connect the Money Pit with Smith's Cove, and the latest survey results once again brought that possibility into the spotlight. Even so, the scientific team remained cautious. They made it clear that no underground tunnel had been confirmed. Similar signals can be produced by a variety of natural geological processes, meaning it would be irresponsible to describe any pattern as a tunnel without direct excavation and supporting scientific evidence. Despite that caution, one detail continued to stand out. Signals detected beneath different parts of the island appeared to follow connected paths. Because of this, the research team began remapping each location and verifying every anomaly in even greater detail. Meanwhile, excitement among treasure hunters reached a new high. Many believed that if these formations eventually proved to be part of an ancient tunnel system, they would provide the strongest support yet for Oak Island's 230-year-old treasure legend. Although experts continued waiting for conclusive evidence, most agreed on one point. If future investigations confirm that these underground connections are genuine, the entire Oak Island mystery could be viewed in a completely different way. Despite the growing excitement, scientists refused to make any premature announcements. The latest ground scans, deep core samples, and underground patterns had certainly captured worldwide attention. But the investigation team insisted that computer models and scan images alone could never prove the existence of a human-made structure beneath the island. History has shown that unusual underground signals sometimes appear convincing at first, only to be identified later as natural geological formations. That is exactly why every stage of this investigation was being carried out with exceptional caution. The researchers continued emphasizing one principle above everything else: scientific evidence. According to the team, no discovery can be accepted on the basis of interesting data alone. It must also withstand careful scientific examination. If an ancient structure truly exists beneath Oak Island, it will need to be confirmed through several independent stages of testing. The process begins with verifying the latest ground scans. After that, additional core samples will be collected from different depths across the site. Laboratory analysis will then examine the stone composition, wood fragments, and metallic traces recovered during the investigation. Finally, every object uncovered during physical excavation will undergo its own detailed examination. Only after all of those steps are completed will researchers be able to draw meaningful conclusions. Even then, the investigation will not be considered complete. The team has decided that every major report will also be reviewed by independent specialists whose role is to examine the evidence objectively and without outside influence. A discovery will only be regarded as reliable if separate laboratories and independent researchers reach the same conclusions. For that reason, every report is being checked repeatedly, ensuring that no decision is influenced by haste or avoidable mistakes. This careful scientific approach is what separates the current investigation from ordinary treasure stories. While many treasure hunters already believe they are witnessing the greatest breakthrough in Oak Island's history, scientists remain focused on one thing: the final evidence. They believe that only if future testing and independent verification confirm that the underground formations are truly human-made will this discovery have the power to rewrite the history of Oak Island. With the latest discoveries from ground scans and deep core sampling, the biggest challenge was no longer discovering what might lie below the surface. The real challenge had become reaching it safely. Oak Island's long history has repeatedly demonstrated that even a single careless decision can undo years of painstaking work. Because of that, every step was planned with extreme caution before any excavation could begin. Engineers, archaeologists, and geologists worked side by side, carefully assessing every possible risk. One of the greatest concerns was the possibility of a chamber collapse. If an ancient chamber or human-built structure truly exists underground, vibrations produced by heavy excavation equipment could weaken fragile walls and cause irreversible damage. A second major threat was flooding. Sudden water inflows have halted several previous excavations on Oak Island. If the same problem occurred again, the operation could be forced to stop immediately, and valuable archaeological evidence might be lost forever. For archaeologists, that represented the greatest danger of all. Centuries-old evidence could be destroyed in a matter of moments if the excavation moved too quickly. That is why the safety strategy for this investigation was designed to be stricter and more carefully planned than ever before. The engineers carried out another detailed assessment of the site's stability before any excavation could begin. A complete 3D map of the area was being updated while specialists continuously monitored water pressure, soil composition, and rock density beneath the surface. Archaeologists also established strict excavation procedures. They instructed that if workers uncovered any ancient structure, wooden remains, or unusual stone feature, all heavy machinery would be stopped immediately. From that point onward, the excavation would continue by hand to protect any fragile evidence from damage. Several final inspections were also scheduled before approval was given to dig. Every ground scan would be reviewed once again. Newly collected borehole data would be compared with decades of previous records, and all laboratory findings would undergo one final examination. Only after every stage had been completed would engineers decide whether the site was safe enough for excavation. The team believed that if an ancient structure truly existed beneath Oak Island, there would be only one chance to uncover it correctly. Even after months of investigation, however, the latest discoveries had raised more questions than answers.